Hello everybody and welcome back. And I've got a World of Warships replay for all of you today. Except I'm pretty sure in about another minute and a half or 2 minutes or so, a whole bunch of you are going to be looking at this replay and going, "What the hell, Chase? Why are you showing us this?" And the truth of the matter is this replay is kind of boring. It's sent in from Never Forgotten, who is playing a Des Moines. Now, Never does manage an incredible amount of damage in this Des Moines and does very, very well. But this is both partially a discussion on the Des Moines, maybe how to play it, and also just, one of those other things about warships that we need to talk about, which is it just a little bit too much like tanks at times? So, first up, let's talk about the Des Moines. The Des Moines, for me personally, is a ship I still like. I mean, the Des Moines has some really, really good things about it. Its rate of fire is still phenomenal, and its AA is still really darn good. But the Des Moines does have its problems. Comparatively speaking to something like a Zhao or a Hindenburg, the Des Moines lacks a little bit of that flexibility. With a Zhao and the Hindenburg, at least you've got torpedoes. Furthermore, the Zhao and the Hindenburg both have advantages in terms of the arc of the guns. They're really, really flat, making it easier to hit stuff at longer range. In the Zhao's case, it's also got that phenomenal fire chance. So, what makes the Des Moines stand out at all, if anything? And, well, one of the things is that the arc on the Des Moines could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. A bad thing is, at range, it's harder to hit. The good thing is, it allows you to shoot over obstacles. So, one of the things that I've started to realize after watching other people play and trying it out myself is that the Des Moines works a lot better as a bit of a sort of defensive holding cruiser. And the reason why it works as a defensive cruiser is that rate of fire. It allows it to hold position nicely behind, let's say, an island and punish things that try to get close. In this particular case, if you look at where Never is, he's behind the big island. Now, this is going to limit the fire that he's going to take from the enemy team from only in front of him and only in a pretty narrow arc, which means that, relatively speaking, as a Des Moines, he's not going to be taking a lot of fire from the enemy. On the flip side, there is plenty of return fire that he can actually pump out just because of that sheer rate of fire, even with only 2 guns. And Never's gonna pretty much sit here and, well, do this quite a bit. It's even hard in this particular case for destroyers to get around to really attack. Because again, with the destroyer, if you get somewhat close and you get spotted, the Des Moines can punish you really, really heavily, and you still have to get around the island in order to get torpedoes off. So this is sort of one of those good defensive holding positions for Des Moines, and Des Moines can pretty much sit behind islands and continuously fire on things and do damage. So, what's the counter to this? Well, I mean, there isn't that much. I mean, what I found is that the best way to counter a Des Moines that might be doing this is try to knock out the gun turrets. So instead of trying to maybe offer fires or maybe opt for citadel hits or whatever, aim for the guns themselves. See if you can take the guns out. A Des Moines that loses a front gun is losing a substantial amount of its firepower, and it's going to have to either move or do something else to try to bring its rear gun into action. So that is the viable counter. Still, I mean, if the Des Moines isn't really focused down or anything like that, and it's given a chance to sit behind an island, it can rack up some serious amounts of damage. Now, remember what I was talking about destroyers earlier on? I mean, here's what happens when a destroyer tries to rush a Des Moines from a head-on position while the Des Moines is taken behind cover. The destroyer does take quite substantial amounts of damage. Now, this Fletcher was able to get off torpedoes, and Never, I think, did take a torpedo from this Fletcher, but still, I mean, the Fletcher didn't really get to survive that encounter at all. One of the other things to keep in mind while playing the Des Moines is the ability to quickly switch between ammo types, and you are going to be using armor piercing a lot. Anything that gives you a broadside, anything that presents that easy sight shot, you want to go from HE to AP right away. And the fact that the Des Moines has a really, really fast reload speed allows you to do that. So Never's engagement against that Fletcher and that Atago, Never initially was engaging a cruiser, switched over right away to HE, it only took a couple of seconds, reloaded, engaged the destroyer, saw the cruiser, and reloaded back to armor piercing. And of course, that cruiser got absolutely wrecked. Next up, Never is going to engage in Iowa. And the Des Moines has a pretty effective way with dealing with battleships. And what you can do is that when the battleship is angled against you, use HE. Burn them down, set as many fires as possible. When the battleship goes and offers you a side shot, then go with AP. And again, use that fast reload speed to your advantage. In Never's case, in terms of his modules, he's also running the reload mod. So instead of a full 6-second reload, his reload is closer to about 5 seconds. So you do have to also keep that in mind, that both the range and the reload modules have their uses at different times with the Des Moines. Now, if you pay attention to this engagement against this Iowa, what you'll see is that Never is going to pop out, take a bunch of shots, and then sort of fall back a little bit into cover, so that even if the Iowa is able to fire salvos in this general direction, that chunk of rock in front of there is going to offer a certain degree of protection. It won't be perfect, but it's a certain degree of protection. One of the other things about the Des Moines is it's not really all that great for fighting out in the open. I've tried this. I've tried it with the Des Moines to just, go out there and fight like, let's say, what a Zal would do. And the Des Moines doesn't really excel at that. If it's out in the open, it really does get punished because it's not as stealthy as a Zal, and then it's not as well armored as a Zal. So, the Des Moines, good ship, but you got to play to its strengths. And as you can see here, there's that alternating between HE and AP. And when the AP salvos do land, they do quite substantial amounts of damage. Because remember, it's that much damage every roughly 5 seconds. And you're talking upwards of 6, maybe even 7,000 damage for a broadside salvo. I mean, I've had ones go as high as 9,000 on a broadside. And if you imagine taking that amount of damage every 5 or 6 seconds, that's quite a lot of pain. One last thing to keep in mind about the Des Moines is that the Des Moines is better when it's one, got some friends. So in this particular case, Never had a friend, which was in a destroyer. The destroyer came over and laid some smoke, and the Iowa has no chance because it can't see, so it has to fall back. So that's the first thing. But second, the Des Moines is a ship that is better later on. The longer you survive, the later on you're still in the battle, the better things get. Because that rate of fire, with that armor piercing, you can take down injured battleships reasonably quickly. So one of the things for those of you who are playing the Des Moines is start defensive, wait for the game to evolve a little bit, wait for things to happen, wait for things to start, dropping an HP before you go out there and you actively engage. In Never's case, what he did was he really, really hurt the Iowa, dropped the Iowa's HP low enough that he was confident that if he just jumped out, he could hammer him. So that's what he did, and the Iowa went down relatively fast. So that's kind of how the Des Moines plays now. You start on, like I said earlier, start defensively, then go on the offense, right? Don't just go out there, rush out there, be on the offense early, because you will get focused down, and the Des Moines doesn't really do well when it gets focused. It's better in the one-on-one kind of environment. And finally, there's two more things to talk about, which is, if the Des Moines plays like this, and it's actually a pretty smart way to play the Des Moines. I mean, I've played it sort of following these rules in the last little while, and I've definitely seen my Des Moines numbers go up. So, it makes me wonder if this is what the USN cruisers are meant to be played like. I mean, the Baltimore, which is a cruiser that is not very well loved, I mean, could a Baltimore potentially benefit from this style? Possibly. I mean, if you equip a reload module and everything, and you use the arc of the USN guns, maybe that's the point of the Baltimore. It's still a bit of theory crafting there. I mean, the Baltimore is just not very good right now, and perhaps this might help. If those of you who are out there struggling with the Baltimore, maybe this is what you have to do. Play defensive to start, be sort of that pest. Set some stuff on fire, do some AP damage here and there. Wait till the game evolves a little bit, where there's fewer enemy ships before you jump out there and actually take action. And the very last thing is, I mean, this is a lot like World of Tanks. I mean, this is why sometimes I look at, like things that happen in World of Warships and I'm like, feels a little bit like tanks on the water. But yet in this particular case for the Des Moines, the tanks on the water kind of playstyle actually benefits from it. And I'm not really sure how I feel about this. I mean, I've seen the idea behind what they've done at times with warships. I mean, the whole armor angling thing, while I'm not a huge fan of it, it does demand a certain degree of skill, right? You got to play on a more active level to angle your ship and think about those things. So I can understand how that is, but it really does at times turn the game into a World of Tanks on water. And to that, I've got to ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think this is, and oh, there you go, see it? 2 forward guns, 6.7k damage to a Yamato. There's almost 5k. So, you know, the 2 forward guns can do quite a good amount of damage. But, you know, what do you all think? I mean, do you think at times World of Warships gets to be a little bit too much like tanks on water? And even so, I mean, now that I've talked about this, I mean, would you use a strategy if you were happening to play Des Moines? I mean, it works and leads to some pretty solid results for the Des Moines player. So, you know, if you help your team and it works, why not? If it's, you know, if it works, don't change it, right? So let me know what you all think about this particular style of play for Des Moines. But let's also look at how Never did. So Never made 604,160. Wow, I need to learn how to do math today. Credits, 5,589 experience, 280 free experience, got Confederate, high caliber, 260 hits, 2 ships destroyed, 9 hits to Citadel. Whole bunch of stuff here. Now, if you look at the damage, Never did 232,774 damage. And all of that added together gave him a base experience amount of 3,726. So does the ends justify the means? Maybe it does with the Des Moines. Anyways, folks, I hope you all have a good one. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll talk to all of you again soon. Have a good one.